Hey guys, welcome to Free Coding. Today we're going to learn about Lambda functions in Python. We do have a regular function where you use def keyword to define it, and followed by that you give your function a name. But it is little different when it comes to Lambda function. First thing is your Lambda function is an anonymous function, which means you don't have to give a name for your Lambda function. And second thing is you can have as many arguments as per your requirement. And thirdly, you can write or you can give only one expression in your Lambda function. That's why it's mostly referred as a single line function here. And another important thing is you have to use the keyword Lambda here. For a regular function, you use def, but when it comes to Lambda, you go for the keyword Lambda here. That's how your interpreter is going to identify that this is a Lambda function. And here is the syntax on how you could, define your Lambda function. First of all, you'll have to write the keyword Lambda. Followed by that, you can write your arguments. You can have as many as per your requirement. Make sure to separate it by comma and then add a colon. And followed by that, we'll have to write our expression. And since I said it's a single line function, it's best when you are using it for a simple operation. It is not suggestible to go for a complex operation, because since it's a single line one, it would create or it would reduce readability of your code. So make sure to use it for a simpler operation. It's a lot better than going for that other regular function when it comes to a simple, short operation. So let's get into an example of how to define one. All right. So there are different ways to do that. One simple way is you can assign the entire function to another object. So here, what I have done is I've created an object called x to which I'm assigning an entire Lambda function. So here is the keyword Lambda. Followed by that, I have written my argument. Here I'm using only one argument, which is y, and then a colon. And followed by the colon, I have written the expression. So it's y plus 10. So whenever I call this x object, which becomes a callable one here, because I'm assigning a function to it, so it has become a callable object. So whenever I call this x, what happens is it is going to print the output of this function y plus 10. So you have to make sure at the time of calling x, you're passing the data or the argument for this parameter y here. So let me define it. So x of 10, just like how you call the regular function. There you go. So now, since I have assigned to an object, I will be able to just call x whenever I want to execute that function. But if you don't want to store that, what you could do is you can directly write your function like this. Make sure to write it within a parenthesis, because you will have to pass the argument value, right? I'm going to pass 10. So how can you separate these two? The passing value as well as the function is by having or enclosing the function within a parenthesis, as well as the same for your argument value that you're passing in. There you go. That works. Now here is an example of passing two argument values. So a comma b. It's gonna return a times b. So x of 10 comma 20. Just like other arguments in other function, it is just following the order here. So let me define the function. So since I have a comma b, a is gonna carry 10, or I'm gonna pass 10 to a, and b is gonna carry 20 here. Let me run this. There you go. So 10 times 20 is 200. So this is a simple way of using Lambda function, but you can make it little complex by using or combining it with different other things. Like you can combine it with function, for example. It won't get complicated, but it would help you to use Lambda function in a more powerful way. So look here, I have created a function called new fun, to which I'm passing an argument b here. And inside that function, I have created the lambda function. So this new fun is gonna return a times b. A is the argument for lambda, b is the argument for new fun. But here comes the question. Now, how am I gonna pass the argument value for a and b then? So that's quite simple here. First of all, you will have to call new fun. Say I have called it, and you have to pass the argument for b here, because new fun is the function. So when you call that function, you have to pass the argument for the parameter that new fun has defined, right? So I'm passing for to b here, and the entire function should be assigned to another object. Here I'm assigning it to doubles, and at the time of calling doubles, that's when I'm going to pass the value for my argument, which lambda has defined, which is a here. So I'm passing the value for a, that becomes 20. So 20 times 2 would be 40. So with the same function, I can pass any number I want or any argument value I want. So here I'm passing 3 and 20, for a stays 20 again. So 20 times 3 would be 60. All right. Now moving ahead with using lambda function with list, but not just a simple list here. I have list comprehension. List comprehension is nothing but it gives you a simple way of creating a new list from the existing values of the already defined list. All right, it's quite a simple one, but I'm not going to get too much into list comprehension here. We are going to combine list comprehension with the lambda function here. All right, so say I have created a new object called new list, which is going to be a list because I'm going to combine both list comprehension and lambda function, which is going to return a set of items. So it's going to get converted into list by just enclosing it with a square bracket. So within the function, within the parenthesis bracket, I'm writing my lambda function here. So lambda keyword, followed by that my argument here, and then a colon, and then an expression. So this tells you that in your lambda function as an expression, you can have a for loop as well. Because why we are using it with list comprehension is because your for loop obviously gonna give you a set of items, right? And we have to make sure all the items are being stored somewhere. So that's why we are going for list here. So what's happening in the place of argument is I'm assigning x value to item, because in this part, in the expression part, what I'm doing is I'm creating a variable called x. I'm iterating through a range of numbers from 0 through 10 without including 10 here. So x is going to carry 0 and then 1 and then 2, but you won't be able to add x directly to the list because it's a function called lambda here. All right. So through lambda only we are adding those items. So x, unless until x is an argument, you won't be able to assign it, or you won't be able to add the value of x to the list. So what we're doing here is we are assigning the value of x to a new argument and then adding that argument to the list. So item gets added every time to the new list object. Let me define this. But there is a twist here. Since I'm gonna add items through lambda function, what happens is each and every object or each and every item inside this new list becomes a function here. So simply when I write new list here, it's supposed to, if it's a list, it is supposed to return just the set of all the items that are stored inside this new list, right? But what's happening here is it is just telling me what kind of item is being stored. So it is a list. You can see that by by the square brackets, but each and every item is a function here. So let me run this as well. Now, in order to print all the items from new list, what you have to do is you will have to iterate through it. So to do that, use a for loop for a in new list. So A is the variable here, which is gonna carry each and every item from the new list. But if you can see, or if you can notice, what I have done is I've used print of A, but with a set of parentheses. I'm just calling the object A here, but A is a variable, right? But the value that A is gonna carry is a function. If I don't use this parenthesis, it's not gonna throw an error, but it is just gonna tell about the items, what kind of item it is, as well as where it is being stored. So as you can see, it's a function, combination of list comprehension and lambda, and it is stored at this location. So in order to see the data, you'll have to use the set of parentheses that would print the list of items. Got it? Now, moving ahead with the last example of using if statement in a lambda function. We have seen using a for loop in a lambda function. We have also seen writing a lambda function within another function. Now, we're going to focus on how you could use an if statement. Like I said, lambda function is a single line function. You won't be able to write more than one line, but you can compress all your entire if statement, if else statement in a single line. That's what we are going to see now. So I have created max underscore value, an object to which I'm assigning lambda here. So, the function. So lambda a comma b, my two arguments, colon, my expression here. So let's break, this expression and see what it is gonna do and all, or what it is gonna return. So what I have done is, in the center, I have written my if else command. So if a is greater than b, and then followed by that, I have written my else part. So whenever you want to write an if else statement in a single line, this is how you're gonna do. You're gonna write both your if command and your else in the center. And on the left and right of these this sentence or this code, what is gonna happen is, if condition is true, what you want to execute will be written on the left hand side of this if command. And if becomes false, what has to happen, that should be written on the right hand side of the else command. So what I have done here is, if a is greater than b, if so, it's gonna return a, or else if a is not greater than b, it's gonna return b. Technically, it is just gonna return the highest of these two values. So I'm calling this max underscore value, and passing two argument values for a and b. So let me run this. So since 25 is, larger, or the largest value that I have here, it has returned 25. So with this, we have come to an end of this video. We saw about what lambda function is, first of all, where you can use lambda function, its syntax, and different ways of using and writing your lambda function. So with this, we'll end the video here. We'll see you in a different video with a different concept. Bye, guys.